Hello and welcome to Savage Reads. I've just been allowed to say that for the first time. Simon and I are so excited because we are going to exchange our thoughts about the Women's Prize long list. We've been busily reading away and it's been really, really hard not to talk to each other about it. So over to you, Simon.
But we haven't, which is quite amazing. And I should say, for those of you who are new to this channel, that's my mother. That's Louise. And yeah, we've been doing this for the last few years where we read the long list together. And I think it was last year when obviously COVID happened that we decided to do it this way. And I really like it, where what we'll do is we'll talk about each of the books in alphabetical order of author's surname, very, very brief sort of synopsis of the book, both our feelings, and then we do a reveal as to whether the book will or won't be on our personal shortlist. Now, I should say it's our personal shortlist. We don't know what the actual shortlist is, and we're very, very excited about it. And it's always interesting to see where we differ and where we agree, both with each other and technically with the judges. So, without further ado, do you want to say your feelings on the long list overall?
Yeah, I do. The really interesting thing for me about this long list was that I hadn't read any of them, all 16 books, none of them ever touched. So, which sort of panicked me a little bit because I thought, how am I going to get them all read in the time? But what a joy, and it's a really eclectic mix, I'd say. And I'm really glad that I've experienced every single one of those books. Got quite strong feelings about some of them. But then you'd expect that anyway when you read a lot. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think there's some very interesting choices. I found it extremely difficult. I think it's been the hardest year for me to whittle it down to 6.
That's interesting. And I should say we don't do them in order of preference either, because you get to see that in our final video where we go through what the real shortlist is and our order of preference of those. So we don't want to give any of that away. But one thing I will say is I found it easy to pick 3. Then I found it very hard. Actually, I would say for almost 10 of the books.
Yeah,
but that's all I'm going to say.
Was that because, well, I was just going to ask, and you don't have to answer it yet if you don't want to. Was that because the ones that you'd got 2 or 3 that you felt really strongly about, but the others were all strong in themselves?
Yeah.
And
it was really tricky to pick out of the strong ones, because there's a lot of strong books on this list. But more of that will probably come out as we go through. But let's go through them. Let's get set, go. So the first one is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Now, I've talked about this a lot on the channel. So, Mum, do you want to give an elevator pitch?
Yeah, I'll try. This is a story set in America. And you know, I'm assuming she's an American author. Is that right?
She is.
And it focuses on the story of twins. Focuses very strongly on the story of the one twin at the beginning. It's about mother-daughter relationships. It's about absence. It's about loss. But for me, the thing that really strikes me about it is that it takes quite an unusual take on racism.
Yes.
And colour.
Yes.
And the narrative's really compelling. You know, I found that it's one of those books that is really difficult to put down, I think. Really rich characters. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting with this book as well, because like you mentioned, it does look at race and colour in a different way, because it's about twins, one who passes as white and one who doesn't, and their lives going forward. But also the book sort of takes a bit of a turn in the second half, where we follow a different group of characters. It's no secret, and I'm glad this one's first because I've talked about it on the channel before. I absolutely loved this when I read this last year. I thought it was fantastic. Like you said, really pacey, really great characters, really interesting take on lots of different things, especially because I think it starts in the 50s and comes up to the present day. And I just love the scope that she has in this novel. It's a very cinematic. I could see this being a great series on Netflix.
Yes.
I think it might be going to be, actually. So the reveal, is it on your shortlist or not? Do we do it at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's two. You're going to have to hold yours closer though, because I made sure I used very striking.
Yeah, I should have been. Yeah, of course. Didn't think about that, did I? I'm not a professional.
Well, you've got a blinking ring light now, so
I know.
it's all starting. So that's the first. That's interesting. Right. Next up, we have Small Pleasures by Claire Chambers, which is a book all about. I always want to say it's an immaculate conception, but that's not right. It's about a virgin birth.
Parthenogenesis, Simon.
Thank you very much. And this is set in the 1950s as well. And it's about a woman who is working at a newspaper. She's not really getting to do the journalism that she wants to do. I'm really struggling to hold this and not give anything away. But it's about a woman who's studying, who is a journalist. She's not getting the story she wants until they hear of this story of a woman who's had a virgin birth. And it's how she kind of gets embroiled in their lives as she tries to uncover the mystery. What did you think, Mum?
I think this book, I love the title because I think it's really deceptive. On the surface of it, it's a very quaint, very sort of the main character. I can't remember her name. What's her name?
I can't remember her name either. I can't open it because I can't.
No, I know. But anyway, the character it focuses on is sort of quite honest. She's a strong woman in the sense that it's the 1950s and she's got her own job and she's looking after her mother, and in some ways is quite downtrodden, I would say. But I think this book packs a real punch. I think it's one of those books that stays in your head. It reminded me very much of Tracy Chevalier's The Single Thread.
Oh, interesting.
And I really like the fact that the stories of these women who the impact of the Second World War and the loss of life of all these young men, these kind of spinster characters who we kind of always assume really straight-laced and didn't really have much of a life, and it exposes that. And I suppose it's quite close to my heart because quite a few of my teachers at school were actually those women.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and I've got sort of quite vivid memories of them. I mean, they were getting on a bit. They was kind of, I suppose, my age now. But yeah, so I think this is a very, very interesting novel.
I thought the writing was brilliant as well. So a reveal, because when I reveal, I'll explain my reason, because I think people will be shocked about this one. I've just basically given it away. It's a no from me.
It's a yes from me.
And the reason it's a no from me is because of the ending. And I'm not going to give anything else away.
Okay.
But I found the ending disappointed me.
Oh right. Oh, I didn't feel that at all.
That's all.
I know what you're saying, but I didn't feel that.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. And on a different list, on a different day, it might have been a yes, but yeah. Anyway, right. So next, this is one that people are very intrigued for my thoughts on because I've kept so tight-lipped. It's Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. Mum, elevator pitch.
Okay, so this is wow. It's a surreal and bizarre book. That's how I would describe it. You're sort of introduced into this world it's all these hundreds of different halls, and you're really struggling to grapple with whether it's real, whether it's not real, and you even get a sense that there are very few. There's sort of very few characters, and it seems like they're grappling with who they are and what they're doing. What I can say about it is it gradually reveals itself, the novel, if that makes sense. I think the setting is amazing. I can't get it out of my head. There are statues everywhere, statues of all sorts of things, creatures, people, and it's it's almost like unlocking a puzzle reading this book. And I can't give it a genre, and I can't compare it to anything else I've ever read. There we go.
Wow.
And I know that's not brilliantly helpful, but.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Yeah. I am going to shock everyone because I really like this book. I didn't start off liking it, but I got really into it. And then when the reveal came, which I won't spoil, I thought it was such a brilliant book about trauma. and about how brains work. That's all I'm going to say. But it actually kind of floored me because of that. So, reveal. Yes, from me.
And me.
Oh, that's two in common so far. Very
interesting.
Right,
I'm really surprised that you. I'm really glad actually that you.
I didn't like it at first. I carried on with it because there was something that was intriguing me, and then by the end, I just thought it was brilliant. And I think as well, it is the reasons. I don't want to reveal anything, but or spoil anything. But that reveal really affected me in a way that I wasn't quite expecting. And I thought,
there's something almost like the quality of sort of Socratic dialogue about it. I can't explain it. It's kind of philosophical.
Yeah, very. I mean,
I don't want to put anybody off by saying that, actually.
I was joking at first, like that I was a bit sick of every entry because it's told in diary form, and every entry starts with the day that the seagull on my head or whatever it is. And I was a bit like, ugh, but I got into something of it. Anyway, we're meant to be doing elevator pitches.
Sorry.
So next up we have Amanda Craig's Golden Rule, which is about two women who meet on a train and agree to kill each other's husbands. That's the elevator pitch, basically. Yeah. Now I have to say, I tried this and I DNF'd it because I didn't like the writing at all. Mum.
So I didn't finish it either. And I think it's a shame because I think there are some aspects of this novel that are really, like the premise. I mean, the premise is great.
It has been done before, and I was thinking about this with the criteria. Isn't it something about originality or something?
Yeah.
And that made me question this. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And I also thought there were, the setting in Cornwall, that sort of section of the novel, I thought was quite creepy and disturbing and unsettling. But I really struggled to engage or empathize with the characters. I just, for me, they just didn't work for me personally. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I felt like it needed a couple more drafts.
Yes, I would agree with that.
From what I've heard of people about her writing before, regardless of some discussion that's going on around this author in this book, I was expecting more.
Yeah, and I mean, I've never read any of her other books. Have you?
No, neither have I. But from what I've heard, she's so loved.
Oh, sorry.
Her alarm's going off.
She
charges me by the hour for these videos, so I've now gone into the next rate of fee. Anyway, did I do a reveal or did I just take the back off? I think I just took the back off.
Reveal,
it was
Simon.
No from me.
No from me too.
Can't see that though, Mum. You're gonna have to hold me closer.
No.
From Louise. Right, so then we have Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan. Mum, can you give us what's it about in an elevator pitch?
So it's set in Hong Kong, isn't it? And it's the story of a very, very young woman. I think she's about 22. And she's in Hong Kong and she's teaching English to mainly English grammar, bless her, to a load of students, young students. And she develops a relationship with a man who she describes as being much older, but he's only about 27, I think. And I absolutely loved the presentation of his character because he's a banker. And without being rude, you could easily substitute the B for another letter of the alphabet. And I found this
banker. Oh, how interesting. He's a tanker. Okay.
Stop trying to be clever. And I found this book really funny in places. It really did. It's hard. I think writing humor or dark comedy or whatever, I think is really hard. And it's very, very rare for a book to make me smile or laugh out loud. But there were moments that did that.
Really made me laugh on occasion. It was really made me giggle. And for those of you who might have missed it, me and Melanie did this for our book club choice. I'll link that video down below so I can give more thoughts there. I also loved the way it looked at sexuality and didn't label it, and it just was, because as the book goes on, our main protagonist, Ava, she falls in love with a woman. So there's kind of this whole dichotomy going on. But I thought the scenes where she was teaching the children were hilarious.
Oh, they're brilliant.
And it's the internal dialogue that I loved about her, you know, like
Yeah.
she was saying, oh, well, X-Kid is a suck-ass, but I can't say that. Or what was it when she did like a murder of crows, a shoal of fish, and a shallow of wankers. And it just really tickled me. Anyway, Mum, is it on your shortlist or not? Let's do a reveal. No. And I want to just say two things. One, this has nothing to do with the Desmond Elliot and how I will judge Desmond Elliot, because I love this book, but this is one of the books that was in that trench of 10
I agree.
that on a different day could have, depending on my mood, could have gone on that list.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And do you know what? If that was on the shortlist, I wouldn't be upset.
No, me neither.
So, right, now, Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. So this is about mothers and daughters. It is about a woman in India whose mother has Alzheimer's. And as we get to know them, we realise that their relationship has been very fraught at times, very difficult, both in the recent past and in the past, as we go backwards in time slowly throughout the book. That I think says it all, really. Mum, the one thing that was the hook that made me really want to read this, I should say, was that it was described as being incredibly awkward, like you've walked into scenes that you really, like moments that you really, really shouldn't have. How did you find this book?
I was really keen to read this because I'd read about it when it was shortlisted for the Booker and sort of made a mental note of wanting to read it, particularly, I suppose, because I'm quite fascinated by mother-daughter relationships. And the sort of insecurity of the mother and the mental health of the mother in this story is very important. It didn't grab me, I'm afraid. I couldn't care enough. You know, again, it wasn't. I know it's awful.
No,
the reason
that I did is because I felt exactly the same.
This is getting spooky, Simon.
It is getting worrying because normally we disagree more than we have.
Found it cold, I you know, and that's an awful thing to say. And I can see, you know, with every single book on this list, I can completely see why it was selected. And I understand, you know, other people will find it really compelling, but I couldn't. It's not that I need characters to be relatable. It was just that I couldn't empathize.
I think there's a clinical nature to this book.
Yes.
Which is a style that sometimes I thought this was going to be absolute savage catnip. I was going to absolutely gobble it up. It was probably one of the ones I was most excited for. And I don't want to say I didn't feel ambivalent about it because I did like some of it and I thought some of the writing was great. Some of the writing really came alive when it was descriptions of like food or sort of, but I felt a bit like that came before the rest of the book, if you know what I mean. I just felt like for a mother and daughter novel, I felt there were shadowy figures as well. There was just, I don't know, that's how I felt.
Well, I had a bigger issue with the relationship between the daughter and her, was it husband or partner? Yeah. That for me was where I found, I think if that relationship had kind of worked for me, I would have engaged better.
Well, I think you can probably guess what's coming now. It's a no from me.
And it is from me too.
This is very spooky though for us.
I know, I'm getting worried now because there's a danger it's going to get boring, Simon, if we keep agreeing with each other.
So, Dawn French is because of you. Mum, do you want to sort of not tell the story, but give us like a bit of a blurb about it?
Okay, so it's two couples in a labour ward.
Millennium.
Sorry?
It's the millennium.
It's the millennium, yes, that's very important. And they both produce babies. And it's very dramatic and tense at the opening. Dare I say what happens to the baby, or is that going to give too much away?
On the blurb of the book, it says one couple leaves with the baby and one couple leaves without. And that's... So
Yeah. So I could not put this down. I found it. It was a page. It's a page turner, I would say. I think there's a real humanity and warmth to this story. I wasn't expecting to be as engaged with it as I was, and I think there's so much in this book. Again, it's, for me, it's a little bit like Small Pleasures, that it on the surface of it, she makes it look really easy. You know, on the surface of it, it's quite a sort of simple tale, I suppose. But I think, I mean, the character of the politician, again, it's a bit like, what's he called, Jake or whatever, in Exciting Times,
Yes.
the banker. You know, there are parallels between those two characters. And I think I found the politician even funnier in this than I did in the other story. So, you know, there is humour, but I would describe it as a very, very warm novel, which actually tackles some very challenging and very upsetting material. Yeah.
And to be boring, I'm going to completely agree because I really, 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 really like this book. I'm really pleased it was on there. I was at first like, oh, Dawn French is on that list. And we shouldn't do that because, as I've mentioned before on the channel, Graham Norton is one of my favourite writers. Just because you're known for being a celebrity doesn't mean, or a comedian, sorry, it doesn't mean you can't do other stuff. And I didn't love her first, but I liked her first book a lot. This I just thought was brilliant. And I'm so pleased it's on the list because I think the way she can write character, dialogue, situations, and the page turning element of it is just fantastic. There wasn't a page in this I didn't enjoy, even though she was also writing about some really, really dark things. Yeah. That said, is it going on our shortlist? It's a no from me.
It's, I don't know if you can see, but it's going on mine.
Now, I would say this was in my 10. Oh, you love this book. It was in my 10, and it's that thing of there are a certain selection of books that were so close, and this was one of them.
Yeah, I can see why.
We haven't totally though. You what? Sorry.
That's good because it's different.
It is. Right. So next we have Claire Fuller's Unsettled Ground. So this is about siblings who, at the beginning of the book, it doesn't give too much away, their mother dies, and they have been sort of living in this very claustrophobic house together, and it's gone to rack and ruin, and you know they literally keep money in a tin, and it's how once their mother dies they kind of have to deal with modern society, I guess. But also about their relationship, etc. I thought this was really, really well done. It's gothic. I have to say, a latter-day Daphne du Maurier sort of made my hackles rise before I'd read it. But I can see where people are making that. I don't like to do that comparison because I think Claire Fuller is a writer in her own right. But yeah, I very much enjoyed it, and I love the setting because it's near where we used to live. In devices, so that was extra.
Devices, don't they?
Mum, what do you think?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and one of the things I think that's really quite brave and unusual about this, and I don't think I'd realised it until I read it, is that the twin, they are twins, aren't they? No, brother and sister.
Brother and sister.
So many twins on this list.
Siblings.
They're siblings, yeah. But they are middle-aged, aren't they? And also,
I should have said that. Sorry.
Yeah, they're middle-aged and they're also poor. And I thought, crikey, I don't remember. I'm sure, you know, somebody will correct me, but I don't remember reading a novel like that, you know, that focuses on. I love the fact that these sort of rural country folk were being given a voice, but not being patronised at all. And yeah, I'm not going to say any more.
I just really, really enjoy. I've been wanting to read Claire Fuller for a long time. This is her 4th novel. I think her last one has savages in it spelt our way.
Ooh.
As characters. Somebody once sent me a screenshot. Anyway, would this make your shortlist?
Go on. Now I'm really, because mine actually says no, but like this is, I'm so glad yours says yes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really glad, because this is one that I absolutely agonized over, because there are settings in this book that I know I'll remember forever, and scenes in it as well. And I think I do think it's a great book.
But
And
that's how like I feel about Niche Dolan. It's how I feel about Dawn
yeah,
French. It's how I'm
yeah,
going to feel about some of the other books coming. There's only 6 spaces out of 16. I mean, literally,
I
they've
know.
spoiled us,
I
as
don't know how
always.
the judges do it. I really don't know how they do it.
No. Right. Now we have Yara Jazzy's Transcendent Kingdom. Mum, give us a pitch on this one.
Okay, so again, I can't remember the character's name, but it's about sort of second generation Ghanaian.
Gifty.
Sorry?
Gifty.
Gifty, yes. Ghanaian young woman. And she is a scientist. She's conducting scientific experiments on mice, which I know some people will find a little bit distasteful, but actually it's really important. And she's looking at the she's conducting experiments which reveal the psychology around addiction. And it becomes clear that this is because her brother was a drug addict. So you've got all of that all of that going on. And I just loved and really admired the way that science is at the forefront of this book. You spend a lot of the time you're reading it, or a significant proportion of the time, in a laboratory with her and fellow researchers. And again, it's the women's prize to see a female in that setting. I mean, we should be seeing that more in literature, and yet it's still rare. I really enjoyed it, and there's the whole sort of her mother is very complex as well. The relationship with her mother is complex, and she's not, if Ifti is not a straightforward character at all. She does have difficulties with socializing and all those sorts of things. So she's fascinating in her own right.
She's also
is it a debut novel, this one? No,
it's a second novel. And interestingly, I was a bit nervous about this one because Homegoing, her debut, was so loved and so hyped, and I didn't get on with it, so I was a bit nervous about this one, but I thought it was really, really, really well done. I thought the look at science, which is very hard to read with the mice, but I thought was handled really well.
Yeah.
And I thought showed why she was doing what she was doing, but also the link to her getting into science because of what happened to her brother, and the adoration of her brother when she was younger, with some of the memories we get. But also, this book's a really interesting look at a woman who is questioning science and God.
Yes.
And that, I think, is really, really interesting. So yeah. So would this be on your shortlist?
It's a no from me. And again, I know it's another one that I'm absolutely feel torn. I just feel ripped apart. I'd love it to be on there, but there isn't room.
Right, wow.
So glad you have.
Next, and this I find a really difficult book to describe without giving anything away.
Shall I do it then?
Yes. It's How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Cherry Jones.
So I think the important thing about this novel is that it's set in Barbados, and you've got this kind of image of palm beaches and
it's literally called Paradise.
Yeah, it is literally called Paradise.
But it's anything but.
It's absolutely the converse of that. And there's everything in this novel. There's trauma, there's adventure, there's almost a kind of chase scene underground. Well, I suppose it is a chase scene. The characters are, I think, really well drawn. You've got the wealthy, you've got the poor, you've got lots of different sections of society. I think it's a really strong comment on how our sort of view of different places in the world is airbrushed. And also how little we know about certainly, my ignorance. I'm not talking about everybody else, but from my perspective, it was really kind of educational. It made me really question a lot of my misconceptions about things. And I don't think I'm I can be naive, but I don't think I'm a particularly naive person. Simon.
I thought it was really harrowing. It's documented in one of my reading vlogs that I started this and then just couldn't read it because I found it so traumatic, emotional, all those things. However, I then went back and did read it, and I just thought it was brilliantly done. And I think I want to read so much more Caribbean fiction, because I just think some of the voices from, and also, again, it's like you were saying, it's showing you a flip side of what your perceptions might be. Because to me personally, it's always like these tropical islands where everything's amazing and literally paradise, and then this is the reality and it bites. So would this be on your shortlist?
Yes.
But I find it really hard to talk about still. I don't know why. It's weird.
No, well, I think that's right. But what's, for those people who are thinking, I read a review actually of it quite recently, after I'd read it. And it was, it was making that point that it's almost impossible to read at times. But for me, the saving grace was the warmth, and depth of the characters within it, which kind of kept you going, and that whole sort of sense of human resilience or not.
Right, we've got to make this snappier, Mum. We've got 5 more to go. We've got 5 more to go. So next up we have Luster by Raven Lulani, which is all about Edie, who is basically in a relationship with a married man. Well, she starts an affair with a married man who's in an open marriage, and they become very embroiled together. And then, she's having a really tricky time in her life. She can't kind of work out where she is or what she wants. But she ends up with him. And then, I don't think it's a spoiler to say, she moves in. And then other things become apparent as we go on. I thought the writing in this was brilliant. I thought it was a very contemporary novel about now. It reminded me of like Queenie, but like on...
that's what I was going to say.
On speed.
Yeah.
Because it was like extra. And interestingly, occasionally, I struggled with some of the things that are brought up and some of the ways in which Edie interacts with other people. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I found that tricky to read. But also I felt like, I'll say this later actually, carry on.
No, I concur with all of that. I think had I not read Queenie, I might have read this quite differently, but I couldn't stop seeing parallels. And yet for me, Queenie was a much more believable, much more plausible, much more empathetic character. I know I keep using that word empathy, but for me it's very important when I'm reading, and that doesn't mean that I have to like them. I just have to kind of understand the way they tick.
Sometimes it's quite enjoyable to read a book where you don't really like it.
Absolutely. And I tend to prefer those very often. So I don't know whether it's kind of because I'm British and Queenie is a novel written by somebody British, or whether this is American. I really don't know, but I just couldn't. Some of it was incomprehensible to me.
See, I felt she writes about our generation, really, my generation, well, actually younger than me, actually, so I'm talking rubbish. But I think she writes about that really, really, really well, and the pressure on young women and what young women will and won't do for comfort, for validation, for all those different things. I thought that was captured really well. That said, reveal, it was a no from me.
And from me too.
But on another day, this was one of those ones that was in my 10 where I was a bit like, okay, it could go either way. Right, then I've just realised I think I've only got space for one more. We're gonna, right. No one is talking about this. So this is a book about a woman who is totally living in the world of social media and is kind of constantly online until she finds out something has happened to her family. And so she has to very much come to confront the real world. Is that a fair way of describing it?
Yeah.
And it's very much a book of two halves. And I'm going to say I am so on the fence about this one. I'm getting splinters because sometimes with the writing, I was like, I don't know if that sentence makes sense. I don't know where that's come from, and I don't know what's going on. And other times I was like, this is amazing. So I'm very much on the fence. Where are you?
Oh, I'm not.
Oh,
I became unbearable when I was reading this because I couldn't stop laughing. I found it absolutely hysterical. For me, it was worth reading just for the first half of the novel. You know, that would have done me. I really enjoyed it, and I think just the way she captures our kind of reliance on social media and the digital world, and how it's in danger of completely ruling our lives. And I loved the way that she was playing with the language that we use. Is it spoken language? Is it writing? What is it? Are we having a conversation or aren't we? I think it sort of captured a lot of my sort of, I mean, I love social media, clearly. But I also grew up in a world where it didn't exist. So it sort of, I think for me, it really resonated. Yeah.
okay, right. So is it on your shortlist? How many have you got on your shortlist so far?
I'm not saying.
Oh, okay. It's not on mine.
It is on mine.
Oh, I like the fact that we're finally beginning to have different tastes.
Yeah.
Although every time you talked about a book that you have put on your list that I haven't, I can totally see why you liked it. Like I can see, like I said with that one, I'm so on the fence, it's untrue. But sometimes I would love it, and other times I was like, I don't understand it. So anyway, right, next up we have Consent by Annabelle Lyon. Mum.
So the thing I suppose that stands out most for me about this novel is actually again, I can't remember the main character's name, but she has a passion for fashion. And I think this novel for me is most memorable because it's really sensory. You know, that whole sort of, for anybody who loves clothes or loves, going in, trying things on, there are lots and lots of scenes in this book that I think will appeal to you. Simon?
So we should say it's about
It's
about two sets of sisters, and in each set of the sisters, one of the women is murdered by her partner. And I won't say any more than that. I liked it. I thought it looked at, I love books about siblings, and I don't know whether it's because I didn't have them until I was quite a bit older. I'm not portioning blame there, Mum, I'm just saying. But I think it's because I'd not had that sort of same age sibling thing. It's something I find really, really interesting. So I enjoyed that. I thought the way that she looked at disability in this novel was really interesting as well. But I sometimes felt a bit like the writing wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. I thought the concept was good. Yeah, that's how I put it.
I think for me as well, one of the things that sort of skewed my reaction, and it shouldn't do, it's a kind of, I suppose, an inverse snobbery, was the fact that the characters were very wealthy.
Oh, I didn't really think about
that. I kind of felt that sort of made, it didn't make the situations easier for them, but I don't know. I just, it was kind of a world, that aspect of it was a world I didn't recognise. That it was problematic for me. Yeah. However, I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. That's how I'm going to say, which I think gives away whether I shortlisted it or not.
And me too. So no, me neither.
So, but also I think as well, and I'm going to, this isn't, because I read them in order of sort of alphabetical order. I did feel by this book I was getting, there were similar themes that were coming up, and I felt like I'd read it before because of the context of the list and the way I was reading it. So whilst I'm really pleased that this has been highlighted, but at the same time I was a little bit like, because it's a bit similar to a few of the different books in various different ways, I was a bit like, ooh. And also it's where I got my sort of a bee in my bonnet bit, because I was like, Rose Tremaine was eligible for this prize, hang about. but that's what I'm saying. So next up we have Nothing But Blue Sky, which, just for full honesty, I haven't finished yet.
Oh, is that because you?
Okay,
should I talk about what the premise is? So this is a story about a man. Again, I think he's probably in his 50s, late 40s, and his wife has died in a plane crash. And it's about his
thing, because he studies plane crashes.
Yeah, and it's about the way that he copes with the loss of his wife. A lot of the story, the majority of the story, takes place in Spain, doesn't it? On the in Catalonia. I loved the fact that she was writing from a male perspective about grief. I loved the fact that the lead character, again, can't remember his name, but anyway, we've
read a lot of books in a condensed amount of time, Mum. It's fine.
I know. Thank you. And I'm getting old. He's quite sort of self-deprecating, you know, he kind of laughs at, he understands himself quite well. And I really enjoyed the relationships in this book. Occasionally I would think it was going down quite a cliched route, and then it would pull back and do something I wasn't expecting. Yeah, very, very interesting novel, I think.
Yeah, and part of the reason I haven't finished it is because I have been really busy, but also, and run out of time, but also because this isn't a book I want to rush.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah,
and because it's towards the end, and because, well, we'll talk about the next book in a minute, but I picked this as the last one to read, and I think it was because I think the cover's a real missell.
Yes, I did.
Because I think this book isn't anything to do with that. So, yes, I was a bit like, and I hadn't heard about the author, which normally makes me want to read it first, but because I was doing it in alphabetical order, and then I started running out of time. But I'm definitely going to finish it. Now, would it be on your shortlist, Louise?
No, but I agonised over this one. I think this is a great book.
I think it will be on the shortlist. I've just got a feeling about it, and if it is, I won't be upset at all. And that's how I feel about a lot. There's only a couple of the books that we've spoken about so far that if on the shortlist, I'd be like, compared to some of the others. Anyway, penultimately, we have Detransition Baby by Tori Peters, which has become one of the most talked about books on the long list. It's all about transitioning, and it's about and also all about motherhood and the question around queer families. And what else do I want to say about it? That's all I'm going to say for now. I want to hear what you thought about this one, actually, because I'm really intrigued.
Well, I think you're going to be disappointed in me. So I was really, really looking forward to picking this up and reading it. I'm extremely interested in the subject matter, etc., but I could not get into it.
That's interesting.
I don't know whether that is because of when I picked it up. You know, I am gonna persevere. I will read it at some point, but I kept picking it up, reading a few pages, putting it down, picking it up, and I think it was partly because there's quite a lot of sex in the first few pages, and I don't object to that. I'm not, you know, I'm not some fuddy-duddy or whatever.
Prudish.
I'm not prudish at all.
People should see the pens that my mum got me for my birthday. That's all I'm saying. There's some language on there I didn't know.
But for me, to suddenly be plunged into that when I don't know anything about the people involved, I found that
the word plunge.
I just found it really grating, and I don't know whether it's, you know, it could be a time of life thing. You know, let's be honest. But I, you know, as I say, I feel really disappointed in myself, and I will pick it up and I will read it. But for me, that the you know, as I say, I just kept being put off by that, and you know.
No, the thing is, I don't think this is an easy read at all, and I think in some ways it's very confronting and it really makes you think. But I think it's a very important book, a really, really important book, especially for right now. And I think, and this is something that I need to think about, because I think part of my feeling towards this book is because it's that kind of book and it is doing that, which I think needs to be done. I don't always think the writing was brilliant. I don't always think it was accessible. But once I was in it, and it's why I chose it over that, because also there's just been so much talk about, people have tried to get it removed from the long list. And
yeah, I mean, this is why I feel, but then again, you shouldn't be pressured by that either.
No, but also I was a little bit, but actually that I think kept pushing me through. So I've still got thoughts to make about this book. I think this book needs to settle a little bit, because I only finished it yesterday, so it really, really needs to settle with me. Right? Would it be on your shortlist, Mum?
Well, no.
But it would.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, because that restores the balance, and actually it means that if it does appear on the shortlist, I will read it properly. But I just, as I say, I haven't been able to get into it. I'll try.
You'll have to plunge again. Right, so finally, and it's no spoilers because everybody's going to know whether this is or isn't on my list if they've done the maths. It's Summer by Ali Smith, which is the fourth in her seasonal quartet, but can be read alone, even though there's a lot of characters from the previous novels that all come together. It was written so close to publication that it features COVID and face masks, but I actually loved the fact that it talked about the masks we wear. I thought that was really clever. And I think what she's done with this quartet is phenomenal. I don't think this is the best of the quartet, but I don't think it's the worst. So that's my thoughts.
No, I concur. And I think my this was the one book that I chose to read on audio, so I've kind of listened to it rather than read it. I think it's she is so unique in the way that she approaches her subject matter. Her writing is poetic. The issue I had with this was that for me, and I don't know whether this was partly because I've read the rest of the quartet and enjoyed it, but I just find that I am so aware that it's writing.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I'm very conscious all the time. He said, she said, he said, she said, and I perfectly understand why she's doing that, because it makes you focus on the actual dialogue.
Yeah.
And also you've got to read between the lines and so on. But actually, and when you're listening to it aloud, I just found it. I kept switching off, and so again, I think this is a book that I need to actually at some point in the future, and certainly if it's on the shortlist, I will read rather than listen to.
I also think it's a book that, because it is part of a series, even when they stand alone, I feel like you need to have read the series in order to really enjoy them. And it's one thing that I'm going to say that is a controversial thought, but I don't think books in series should be put forward for prizes. No,
and we said that about Hilary Mantel's book, didn't we, last year? I think we both felt that, that we'd already met the characters and we'd already.
Yeah.
I don't know. You see, I think
for me, it's the originality question mark. It's like, if it's part of a series, yes, and this is totally original. And one thing I love about Ali Smith's writing is that she's so original, and I love how she plays with language. But for me, like, out of the quartet, I'd want her to win with Winter, because that blew me away. I thought it was amazing. I don't think Summer for me is the one. So I've just said that, but everyone can do the maths. It was a nope from me.
And me too.
And a note from Louise. So there we go. We have a personal shortlist. So here's mine, because I kept them all separate.
I haven't been that organised. Hang on. Right, let me just unfurl my... That's not the right word.
It's going to be very interesting to see who's closest on Wednesday.
Well, and also, it could... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've missed one. Where is it? Here.
All right, my arms are just going to drop off. Don't worry about me.
Sorry, I'm trying to... I've got mine upside down to yours. And not as tidy.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Who's going to be closest? Is it going to be me or my mummy? We will find out.
Neither of us.
We'll find out tomorrow at 6:30. So We will be back for our final video before the winner is announced, where we go through the actual shortlist in order of our preferences and choose our own personal winners or predict our winners. In the comments down below, do let us know what your personal shortlist would be. And yeah, I will be doing a video with the shortlist reveal tomorrow, which may or may not include my mother's reaction to the shortlist at the end of that video. So you'll have to see. But until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Bye.